2022 meeting of the CIP Committee to order, and we'll have Addison call the roll.
All right, Obrecht.
Here.
Carberry Montgomery.
Here.
Hutchison.
Here.
Nicholas.
Here.
Hollibrands. Here. Hilbert.
Here.
Bodie.
Here.
And Chuck Curran is absent tonight.
All righty, and we do have the Citizen of the Year here with us tonight, Ms. Bodie. So congratulations on that and all the work that you did to do that, not knowing that that would be the honor.
Yeah, I did. Thanks.
So continued congratulations to the year on that. Character count statement. Thank you, Addison, for providing it this year. Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect all participants to act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Next will be AJ's comments before taking leave, as we heard he's not feeling the best. So,
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First of all, welcome and thank you for spending time with us tonight and possibly Thursday and for sure on the 20th when you have your public hearing. The Capital Improvement Program runs from 2023 through 2028 and beyond. For those of you who have sat through these meetings before, you understand that this is the city's roadmap for capital projects that we'll undertake in the next 5 to 10 years. First 5 years is really the more critical period of our review because those are the projects that we put in the queue, if you will, that projects that will be completed or undertaken in 23 will move out. If they're completed, the ones that are in 24 will move forward, and that's the way the process works when everything works right. A lot of factors will influence the decision to move forward on projects once you have your review, your public hearing, and then you send it on to City Council. They will also have a chance to review the document. They will have a public hearing, and then they will adopt it at some point in January. After that, that becomes the staff's roadmap for the capital projects. We take that and we move that forward through staff or through outside consultants for design work, for construction estimates, whatever it is. And ultimately, we bring those projects back to council. So I don't want to give the impression that it's a blank check and off we go running into the wilderness with that. It is a process that begins with staff, ultimately going through council to follow all the city's procedural policies and state and federal requirements for purchase or bidding requirements. So there is a process. There will be development of plans and specifications. There will be public hearings. There will be public hearings on those. Then you'll have final adoption of a project or approval of a piece of equipment that might be mentioned here tonight. I did hand out, just for a quick reference, it won't have anything other to do than for your nighttime reading, something to do with local option sales tax. Local option sales and service tax have been implemented in the city of Urbandale, first in Dallas County and now in Polk County. Those dollars are used for capital projects. The one we passed, the first one for Dallas County, those dollars are being focused to retire the debt for Fire Station 43. When we went to get the local option sales tax passed in Polk County, the state law had changed that required 50% for property tax relief and then 50% for whatever a city council determined is what they wanted to use. We use it for property tax relief and then for any lawful purpose, which means any lawful purpose allowed by the state law. So we'll make reference to that as we go through tonight when we make reference to local option sales tax. The finance director, Nikki Lamb, will also make reference, given some of the changes that we have been recommending in the use of local option sales tax, given some of the circumstances that we've been faced with in the last couple of months. There are 11 sections in this book for your review. The last section is the water section. It's there because they're part of the city, even though they're independent. We will not be reviewing that. That is there for just because it has to be there, has to be incorporated into our capital projects. But as a committee, as staff, and as city council, you have no control over that. They have their own internal process that they identify projects, that they are looking for expansion, replacement, repair of the water infrastructure. The projects that you'll be looking at tonight are all, again, capital projects. They meet the definition of capital defined by the city. Operational issues, they may come up in your discussions, but they are just that, operational. They will be discussed by staff and city council in January. So we've had that discussion previously where the committee said, well, we think there should be more money for trail maintenance. You can make that recommendation, but that is ultimately the decision of city council about where they're going to put dollars to support these capital projects. If you'll quickly look at your book, please, and a couple things I want to bring to your attention. And we have one new member, staff had an opportunity to sit down with Jackie and Chuck several weeks ago and do a quick orientation to the process and to the previous document. But behind the introductory page, which gives the CIP members listing, we'll show the new projects that have been identified by staff. And that's something that we've evolved to over the years, is that as we've introduced new projects, several years ago when the CIP committee looked at it, they said, well, can you please identify which are new and which are existing, which are ongoing? So this is something to keep in mind. And then the page right behind it are CIP projects completed or nearly completed. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of where we are as of the time of the publishing of this document. The next tab you'll go to, excuse me, is the city manager transmittal letter. And hopefully you've had a chance to memorize that. There will be a test. But this is just an outline of our process, of our funding sources. And one of the things to keep in mind is that we do tap into as many funding sources as we're legally able to do capital projects. So you'll hear the word TIF. You'll hear the local option sales tax. You'll hear GOB, which is general obligation bonds. You'll hear a whole number of terms and acronyms that are outlined in your document here, so you can make reference to that. Also, for our veteran members and our new member, don't be shy. If something comes up and you want an explanation from a staff member as to what a particular acronym is, please shout out. I mean, this process is to make you as comfortable as possible and as formed as possible that you make good decisions and that you make a recommendation to City Council. We have a well-versed staff who have had a gazillion years of experience of doing this, and they're ready and willing to answer any questions that you have. They're also good at making up things, so they can, get anything addressed that you want. But again, please look through that, if not tonight, at some future point. I would say that if you draw your attention to the Roman numeral number 2, it gives an overview. In the first 5 years, if you adopted this document and we did everything in the first 5 years, you're almost $276 million worth of capital projects. That's a lot. And think about that. And that's over a 5-year period. Obviously, in that 5-year period, we will not do every project that's outlined. There will be issues and circumstances that present themselves that will make alterations to your best laid plans. Several years ago, we had projects that we had to delay because the price of commodities, concrete, for example, skyrocketed mid-season. So the council decided to abandon 2 different projects that they really wanted to do and pushed them out to the next year. Not saying that will happen, but as the Public Works and City Engineer Director will outline in some of his material, there's quite a bit of volatility in that marketplace. There are supply issues, there are inflationary issues with fuel, with cost of labor, cost of materials. So that will also be evident in one of the projects that we go over through this document, which is 170th and Meredith, or known as Alice's Road in Meredith. The council accepted that project last year knowing that it had a significant overrun. They had such a significant impact on the community, they said they wanted to move it through. And they said, deal with it at CIP time, so that this is what we'll be hearing the recommendations about how we'll have to deal with that. That also gets back to the use of local option sales tax, and how that is going to be affected by some of these factors that we'll raise tonight. The highlights that you'll see, if you look through your tabs, they're all very self-explanatory. And again, I don't want to belabor that point, but they go by categories. Our staff members are here tonight to present those projects which lie within those categories. Please ask questions as we go. Again, our job here tonight is to make us comfortable and keep you as informed as possible so you make good decisions. And that I will also say, golden rule number one, this is a balanced document. If you're going to add a project, say for $1 million, you have to find $1 million to balance it out within those projects. And sometimes that's easier said than done. Sometimes we've accelerated projects out of the out years and brought them into the first 5 years, not at maybe the 4th or 5th year, just to identify that it has a higher priority than we may place it on its staff. And those will be discussions up to you. But that is really one of our golden rules, is that you can't add without taking away. There's certainly, we've made adjustments as best we possible. And as I said, once we get going on some of these projects and we find that, pick an item, the cost of concrete, cost of fuel, labor availability, supply issues, whatever it may be, those certainly will influence the outcome of some of our projects.
AJ,
Yes.
quick, but you can take away without offsetting, obviously. So it's like, it's a cap in essence.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's a better way of putting it. You can't add, but you can take away. This is the cap that we've established with the monies that we've identified available with the debt service levy, which is the levy that we use to pay off our debt, and all the other instruments of finance that we have available to us to finance these projects. Good point, thank you. Again, those are all the comments that I have. I will sit through and listen to the finance director, and she has some comments to make along these lines. She may have some comments concerning the local option sales tax. Again, one of the reasons I wanted to put that out there because it is such an integral part of how we're financing projects. There's lots of rumblings coming out of the State House that may change in 2023. So we'll need to take advantage of it while we can. But having said that, please let me introduce Nikki Lamb, our finance director.
Welcome this evening. We hope to move through a lot of information tonight. AJ really covered most of the main points. To Adam's point, you can always take away. To add on to what AJ said, you can add, but it has to be the same type. So TIF needs to be TIF. You can't trade up something that's a different funding source because those are also balanced within it. To elaborate a little bit on the local option sales tax, at that beginning in the transmittal letter, if you just want to read that paragraph, it kind of explains it a little bit better as to what we're doing. Local option sales tax is a very powerful tool for us, and it's a large amount of money, but we can't commit that on into the future until we know what this debt service retirement plan looks like. Interest rates are terrible, good but bad, right? So from a borrowing perspective, we're now going to borrow at more than 5%. So it no longer makes sense to call and pay off old debt when those are only at 3 to 4%. So that's why we've taken a little pause, and you'll only see local option sales tax in the 2023 column, because in the future that rate may change and it may make sense again to do it, and we won't have those capital funds. So we don't want to tie up a project assuming lost funds are available, because we're going to go year by year. So I know in the 2023 I will not be calling and paying off those $3.4 million in bonds because the interest rates are 5% right now. So we'll use those funds instead, and they are, as AJ reflected, applied to the 170th Street project. So that's the reason you'll only see local option sales tax associated with one project. That's what we have available to work with within this construction year. Next year at CIP, we'll make that call again as to where we're at. The only other one that I was going to call in the financial section, the B3 table. This is where your snapshot is of what you're spending in every category type. And that piggybacks on the one that has the little graph at the bottom. So this is cumulative across all types. I don't care if it's streets, bridges, whatever, parks. Each funding type is balanced within it. So that's what I'm talking about. If it's GOB, it shows that we're going to issue $9.8 million in general obligation bonds. So if you want to change around a project, that's what the category that we're talking about just needs to balance within that. But it does show all of the other funding sources. Is when you're looking at each individual page, it's kind of hard to feel in total what does that actually represent. So that's the main table that I work off of, is making sure in total this document balances and it matches our revenue sources. That's really all I have for you. I think we'll just jump right in unless anybody has questions. No?
All righty.
Okay.
So
First up is art, which I think is Jan. And while she's making her way up, just plan for tonight is to go about 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish. Take a break at that point and see if where we're at in the plan, if we need to come back Thursday or not. So just to kind of let everybody settle in your seats accordingly. Yes.
Sounds great. I think everybody but Jackie knows me. I'm Director of Parks and Recreation. So Scott, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, and I will be tag teaming on different projects tonight. Public art, and we are fortunate on the CIP committee as the chair of the Public Art Committee is Rob Hilbert's been on the committee 6 or 7 years and has led the committee many great projects over the last number of years. So as is outlined in the CIP, where the funds that go toward public art is 1% of bond debt issued related to capital projects for parks, city facilities, main arterials, and streets. So those funds that are shown in each of the years here is indicated by that 1%. And coming before the council each year, these funds have been used for commissioned artwork, for purchasing art that's at the art park. So anything that is kind of bricks and mortar and lasts over 15 years. So these are not used towards stipends or special events or things like that. Each year, the Public Art Committee does a strategic planning meeting that then they outline what their goals and efforts will be within the budgets of the operating budget as well as the CIP budget of where they're going to focus their efforts and energies for the next 12 to 18 months. That will be coming up in January. So be happy to answer any questions you might have, and Rob might as well for the public art.
Jan, I realize this is in year 5. In 2027, it's only $10,000. I realize it's a percentage of the other categories, but, you know, we have a strong history of public art, and, you know, that number makes me a little sad. So hopefully things will change by then, and we can figure out other funding sources to keep us at a relatively stable, you know, 25 to 30, you know, range.
And fortunately, with the CIP funds, they're not their special revenue account, or they're essentially going to go away at the end of June 30th. So accumulating different funds, and that where the Public Art Committee knows the limitations. Some years are going to be more than others, so they make their recommendations based on that. But if some amazing, great project comes up, we will definitely be coming to Commission and Council to share that with you.
That.
I have what may be a stupid question, but it says projects funded through a bond referendum would not be eligible for art projects. Can you tell me why that is?
I'll defer to Nikki.
Well, then it wasn't that stupid. Okay, good.
It's usually because those are specified in the total bond offering. It's a separate levy that's agreed upon for whatever that term is. So we usually don't add in art. It would be part of the facility or whatever you're doing for a referendum. So for example, the community rec complex that will be installed, I'm sure there will be art as part of that, but that'll be part of that project itself. So we don't do a separate citywide thing for a bond referendum. Most of the time we're needing every dollar we can as part of that referendum, so we don't want to add 1% to the cost of that arbitrarily, since we have another funding source. That's the way it's always been, is whatever we're building probably has art already included.
Thanks.
And then with the design firm for, as we're working forward, that is part of the discussions of, let's talk about how public art can be incorporated into the design of the facility. Speaking of the facility, like if you're ready to go on to the buildings. So the first one on the building section is the community recreation complex. This is proposed for a March 2023 bond referendum. So we've been working with have a number of community forums, 2 scientifically valid surveys, significant community input. It's looking favorable that there's community support, but we'll know that for sure on March 7th. But here before you tonight are the preliminary design sketches. The firm will be presenting more concrete preliminary design plans at the Park and Rec Commission meeting on December 7th, and then to the City Council on December 13th. And I certainly, if you've followed this, and I think most of you have, in regards to the need for this type of facility, the support of this type of facility, and this will be going in January, where the council will make the decision in regards to the wording on the question on the bond referendum, and then we go forward with that. So right now, the funding here estimated at $43 million, which would include indoor gyms, indoor walking track, indoor playground, indoor meeting space, as well as programming space, outdoor splash pad, outdoor playground, and outdoor pickleball and tennis. So a unique facility for Urbandale, unique amenities, and it would be located in the Walnut Creek Regional Park. This is where the fire station is located. This is Meredith. This is 152nd. So this is the proposed location. Be happy to answer any questions on that project. And I'm going to pass the baton.
Next item is upgrades to our training building that we have at 121st Street. All the items have already been purchased. We're just waiting to schedule for installation. So that's an ongoing process that should be wrapped up in the next 4 months.
By the way, introduce yourselves too, since we do have new
I
members.
apologize. Jerry Holt, Fire Chief here in Urbandale. Just assume everybody knows me. The next item is Fire Station 41 replacement. We have gone out to a consultant to look and study that to see if the station should be relocated when it's replaced. That process, the consultant will be in town the next Monday and Tuesday, and a projection of that study being completed within the next 4 months as well. Included also is expansion of Station 42. Station 42 was built in 1997.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you know I've been a very strong supporter of the fire department over a good many years here.
Yes, sir.
I have a little problem with this discussion about relocating Fire Station 41. I understand, I mean, we've always wanted to do something there. It's, the structure as it stands now is, no question about it, is inadequate. It's got some problems with it. I am very, very reluctant to relocate to someplace else with that station. I wouldn't absolutely rule it out, but a few years ago when we were struggling with the location of Fire Station 43 and we were drawing all these circles on the city map and all that, it looked like Fire Station number 41 was probably in about the right place. And I still feel that way. Now, I would certainly defer and listen to your comments about the merits of some other location, but right now, my inclination is that I think we ought to be focusing in on expanding or rebuilding at the present site rather than spending money. And you know, we're always spending some money for a consultant to think about someplace else, but I really think we need to think seriously about this. If we have to buy adjoining real estate, whatever, I really think that's the way I'm inclined at this time. Thanks.
Understood. The impetus for looking at the location is when that station was built in 1975, it was in a great location and served Urbandale well. Urbandale then expands to the west, and as it expands to the west, the station now is so close to the eastern boundary that if you draw a circle around the station, you're losing coverage to the city of Des Moines that you can't cover there. Certainly 66% of our call volume is in this station's territory, but we think, and we're going to have a study to tell us for sure, that if we moved it further to the west, we would get a better concentration of response times in that area, since you wouldn't be so located to the east instead, more centrally located. So our thoughts are somewhere in the neighborhood of 86th Street between Douglas and Meredith, somewhere in that location. Don't have a specific spot picked out. And what we'll do is we'll take and look at all the GIS data to show us where our calls are, what our response times are, what our drive response times are, to make sure that it's not a negative impact on the greater good, if you will. And if it was a greater negative impact, then obviously I'd be up here to recommend that you don't do that. But if it is more positive to a greater number of people, then I think that's probably a good thing to look at. So we'll have a lot of data for you to look at when it comes to be that time.
Good answer.
86, Douglas, Meredith, there's like 4 or 5 car garage in that area.
We don't have a spot picked up.
Big supporter of.
Did you have a question as well, sir?
No, I did not. Thank you. Chief, one quick question. What's the lead time on the fire tender truck? Is it the same 24 months?
Well, right now, everything seems to be, that's the answer, is it's 24 months.
I know it.
And then a lot of them, when they tell you it's 24 months, they come back 6 months later and tell you it's going to be 24 months from now. So it's a moving target. I really don't know what to tell you on that. I hope not. It's a pretty simple truck. It's not as near as unique for a department because it has a tank and it has a way to offload the water. It doesn't have a pump associated with it, so that's why it's a cheaper cost. So I would think it would be much easier to do, but I don't know for sure.
And I don't know that there's an annexation plan in place in the next whatever, but that's one of those things could move up. And if the annexation moves quickly, then that one might have to go a little bit earlier.
And there is a plan, but it's all driven by the property owners. When they want to say yes, this one happens.
Right.
So.
Any other questions?
All righty, so major equipment
Should be changed to fire department.
Yeah.
All righty, technology. Sean?
So we have one item within the technology section.
We have technology back for it too.
Yep. Perfect timing. So basically, all our phone and data is done over the city's fiber lines. So we're trying to do redundant paths to all our facilities. We've done some other facilities, and now we're looking to do it to Fire Station 42 and Fire Station 43. We've been held up a little bit. We worked out a deal with MetroNet where they're going to put the conduits in for us, and then we would have to just finish running the fiber. They were delayed. They just recently got the conduits in for us, so we're wrapping up our design. So in 2023, we'll get to the 2 fire stations, and then in 2024, our plan is to come out Meredith and up 170th once that construction project is done to get to our satellite facility site, which is out here. Then we should have a redundant path to all the city buildings.
All right, John, I think you get to relinquish to Jan or to Scott. Okay.
Back just in time.
Get John away from it so it doesn't break it again, I suppose. I'm Scott Hoke. I'm the Assistant Director for Parks and Recreation, working with Jan on some of the projects. We have about 20 projects, so the ones that are in out years, we'll just give a mention in, and then we can get in a little more detail on some that are a little bit more current. The first one is an out year, which is just some connecting trails through Oakwood Open Space. The next one is a little bit more current. It's actually a 2-year program. It is to redo some existing trails in the Parkview Creek Trail, which is kind of we're south of Meredith and then east of 86th. You can kind of Lakeview Park and Pond is kind of over here in this corner there. That's Townsend right through there. So, so the first phase would be to redo this connection. And then the next would be bring it all the way down here in the blue. So those would be it's again a 2-year program. Red is 23, blue would be for 24 on that one. This is kind of a combination. We do some trail improvements, of course, obviously with engineering's help to do some out of the operations. And then sometimes we add these in here when they're big enough to do repairs within the CIP as well too, to kind of help offset just the miles and miles of trails that we do, so.
Quick question. So when we redid the trail up north, the citizens kind of came to the council and said, why didn't you just also connect into the neighborhood and make sure those connections were done at the same time? And I think on this trail, there's some neighborhood connections off of it as well. I assume going forward, our designs would be to connect out, not just the main spine?
Yes, and this one actually connects through the whole connection through there. And then we could look at areas that might be just little pieces here and there, because really that's, although they were not quite little pieces, they were sizable in those connections to make sure that we're doing that. But we are splitting this over 2 years just because of trying to make the funding work for us, so. And then next year is also an out year, and this would be kind of as the property might become available, but this would be a connection. This is Hickman here to the south, and this would connect up into Country Club Open Space, which is one of our parks that connects into the larger trail system. This is not quite an out year, but it is out there a little bit just because we are waiting for some development to happen to make this Waterford Trail connection. Down here is Waterford Park and Barrett-Bozen Park. So this would be the trail connection as the community starts to grow in that direction, we hope. This one is a little closer to the time frame. This is for some improvements into Barrett-Bozen Park. Barrett-Bozen has been extremely popular with us as our natural playscape area. It gets a lot of great uses. We did phase 1, which was the parking lot. There's a shelter and then some play features, including a creek access that, again, been very well received. So we would be looking at in 23 doing connections to these additional circles. This large circle right here is kind of, that's been completed. The shelter down here has been completed. We'd be working our way north, getting where we could and through funding. I can show you, one of the design options is to include sort of an obstacle course as part of the park. And then, climbing rocks are very popular. They look great, and they also serve a great purpose of serving a lot of kids for a lot of different reasons. This was just another neat feature that the people that did the original design for us has included. It's literally a large bird's nest for kids to experience that and feel what that's like to be in there. This goes along with what Jan had mentioned in the office re-expansion. This is to continue that or to do some additional things over there on those pieces of property. It is a multi-year approach because they're all different projects. This is the indoor recreation office, Parks and Recreation office. And then, so the first phase would be to do some additional things within the building. This would be building out some small conference room, but a small community room, as well as this area to the south. Again, we're not quite sure what exactly is going to be in there because we are waiting to see what happens with the bond referendum. Whatever we would do here, we'd want to complement that facility, not introduce something that would want to compete with. And then additional phases or additional projects include some outdoor components as well. This master plan that was worked on has a splash pad here. It has a lawn space, probably an artificial kind of turf to be used for community events, outdoor yoga, outdoor activities. And then we also have in the design here to do a little mini golf, a little 9-hole mini golf, all to activate this space that would tie into the Memorial Tree Park. Obviously, the library is down here as well, too. One of the big things that we would have to do, though, would be to add some parking. We're able to move the recreation offices over there because that's still really the same use as that building. It's kind of office space. But once we start activating that building a little bit, we would need to add some parking. Community development likes to make sure we follow those same rules that everybody else does. So,
Scott, the 2024 improvements, are those the building improvements?
Correct, yes.
And then the outdoor improvements are the 2026?
Correct, yep. And there, one of the things is because with the outdoors, we do feel we'll want some outdoor or some restrooms that are accessible from the outside. So we'd be looking to do the building first. Next is just kind of the next phase for Dunlap. Obviously a very popular park, a very passive park, but gets a lot of great usage. We've done some great improvements over the last couple of years. This would be into 2024 to do a memorial garden. And then in 2026, would to be to add a permanent flushable restroom in that facility as well. This is one of my favorite slides, by the way. So this is for Lions Park improvements. We did share the Lions master plan with council a month or so ago, but this is to get going on those pieces of that. The first phase is in 2023 would be to do the splash pad. We removed the wading pool a few years ago, and the goal has been to replace that with a smaller spray park. So that would be the first one. The second phase, which would be in 2026 or 2024, sorry, it would be to do this corner over here, which would be the tennis court, or redoing the tennis courts, installing some pickleball, and then also some half-court basketball courts in that location. And then I'm going to show you this. So here is the first phase, and then we go into the extended phase, which takes us out. Again, we don't have a time frame on the extended phase, but you can see, oh, sorry, I went the wrong way, didn't I? So this is the extended phase, which removes the existing shelter in the southwest corner and places it up in the southeast corner to add a lot more active lawn space. Now we have shared with the school district that our long-term goal is to look at moving the softball field into a new location. So they know it. They know they kind of need to start looking for maybe a possible location. They have leased the facility from us. And it's just kind of a year-to-year lease that we do, which has been a great relationship. But Lions is obviously one of our more popular parks. It gets a lot of use, so the plan would be to move forward with that. Now, this is an out year to move the shelter. And then in 2026 would be to redo a lot of the playground area and also look to improve and add some parking on the south side along Prairie Avenue here as well. So those would be the Lions improvements kind of phased out over a few years. I'll pause for questions, but if you don't have any, I will move on. Yes.
Anyway, I heard your presentation over at the city council meeting on this subject, and I'm basically not in favor of it. Got a couple of problems with it. First of all, I'll tell you right now, I'm very much opposed to any proposal that requires moving the baseball field. I just unnecessary expense, irritation for the school district, and one way or another, it all comes out of property taxpayers' dollars anyway. And the other thing I've got a problem about is that sidewalk. It looks great on a presentation drawing, but as somebody else observed after the council meeting, we got plenty of concrete. We need grass. I just don't see it. And just letting you folks know, I'm pretty negative on it. Thanks.
And I can share, thank you for that comment. I can share that was talked a little bit about at the council meeting as well, the sidewalk that comes through. Now there has been some just desire that we received through the public input process of kind of having an internal connection north to south a little bit. And we actually would use it as a park maintenance item to get a truck through there to pick up the garbage and make life a little easier on the sidewalks. But where exactly would be located as we get into final plans in the new rendition, whether it would need to slide over, would we need this one right here? Again, those are details that we'd probably work out as we got a little farther along in the plans. Again, our first goal is replacing the splash pad here. Second goal is working here on the active pickleball / tennis courts, half basketball courts. And then the third step is the playground / parking. We do know that this enclosed shelter would more than likely take a bond referendum, so it is down the road before that would be happening. So I don't know, we've talked a little bit about bond referendum money, so I don't know.
Chief might have taken that one off the table.
Right.
Yeah.
Might be down to a while, so.
It's cheap.
Yeah, sorry.
Out year, it is an out year, for sure.
No arms,
Yep.
Chief.
So. The North Park corridor area, That is listed in 2024. And actually, most of this funding would be from contributions from the businesses in the area to help develop that parcel a little bit. We would actually just be kind of leasing that space, so we haven't developed the lease yet. Our commit would be a little bit of the design work, a little bit of infrastructure support, and then the maintenance while it was operated as a park would be our commitment to that. But again, this is to utilize that parcel a little bit better that is sitting vacant. And again, some of the area corporations would be helping make sure that that happens. So the city's commitment, dollars-wise, is for the capital projects is $11,000, just over $11,000 on those in 2024.
And it's a parcel owned by Delta Dental
Yeah,
currently,
correct.
but they don't have expansion plans, so they're offering it for a lease for us.
Community use through a lease, yes.
Okay. It's a great project that obviously hope continues, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It might be worthwhile when doing the fundraising around that to try and secure an endowment for the maintenance. You'd have enough private partners there to maybe pull that off.
The next one is a multiple year project list. So you can see there are a whole bunch of colored dots on the map. If you can see them all, they are pretty small, but they are identifying the parks that we believe need to have playgrounds replaced in them. These are not new additions. These are replacements of the list of, we have 37 playground structures out in the park system, and we have been replacing them through the operational funds of the city, and we are just not keeping pace. Typically, playgrounds last about 20 years, and that depends on the usage and the environmental issues that go along with that. So we have already, we have 15 that are currently 16 years old, and at replacing them one a year, you can see where the math would not work out very well to get to those numbers. So our first year, we would be looking at replacing the playground structures at Murphy, Northview Estates, and Rockland Park as part of CIP dollars. And then Sylvan Ridge is open now, which was paid for out of operational dollars. This just kind of lays out the map of what we'd like to do for the next few years with committee and council approval. Again, just to help us catch up on some of these smaller neighborhood park pieces of playground equipment to make that happen. And then again, next year in 2024 would be Days Run, North Karen Acres Park, and South Karen Acres Park. And then out of the operational, we'd be looking at pour-and-play surface under the swings and slides at Walker Johnson. And you can just see we have that spread out for a few different parks every year.
Can you remind me or educate me what pour-and-play surface is?
So typically we use certified safety fiber or the mulch under most of our playground. We don't use it everywhere. There are a few places that we use a pour-and-play, which is just a rubberized surface that goes underneath playground equipment. We don't have to use that everywhere, but it is operationally very helpful in some of the more active places to switch it out to the pour-and-play. What happens with the mulch, obviously it gets kicked out and then we have to go refurbish it. And if we're doing that quite often, operationally, the cost of doing it operationally is way more expensive than just going ahead and putting.
Is the pour-and-play more accessible from a, like, ADA?
Yes. Okay. So certified safety fiber is ADA accessible. It does meet the qualifications under ADA, but the pour-and-play is a more inclusive kind of surface.
Are you finding that tears up at all, or is it hanging in there? I've seen it torn up so many places, but not here in Urbandale. I was just wondering if it was working out.
Yeah, so other places that I've been associated with, there are times where you have to come in and cut out a patch and re-pour it. But that is usually, again, depends on usage and environmental issues sometimes. But that's a lot less frequent than having come back and dump the chips in, because once the chips get to a low point, then it's, well, first, it's no longer ADA accessible then because of the slope. And then two, you don't have the fall surface that you would have had before. So yeah, there are some times where you do have to come in and again, cut out a patch and re-pour that patch.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. Just curious. Maybe we don't have time for me to be curious. Yeah. Sorry.
We have been adding flushable restrooms. That was identified as part of the master plan. That was done in 2000 and what year? 18. So we recently opened up a new one at Deer Ridge West, and then one at Murphy Park, and then also Barrett Bozen received a flushable restroom. So we want to continue that. One of the things we do have to do is we have several in the system that are definitely showing their age as part of the study that Chief referenced a little bit ago. We have had those looked at as well too, and they have definitely served their life. So our next one that we'd like to be able to do is replace the one at South Karen. If you've been there, you can see that it's not in the best shape. But again, served the purpose very well, but it's time to look at starting to replace those. So we'd be looking at South Karen first, and then doing some of these over here at Walker Johnson. We have done our best to make them ADA compliant, but they were built many, many years ago, so that doesn't always happen that way. So we'd have some design work that has to be done, and then we would start in on the replacements of those pieces, so. This is also an ongoing one that has been on here, the utility installation in various parks as we prepare to put shelters in them, or drinking fountains and those sort of things. This allows us to do that. We'll be looking at Sharon Heights, which will be receiving a shelter this upcoming year. We would be adding a drinking fountain, and typically we would add some sort of electricity and stuff to those as well. So. This is in 2024. The skate park has been well used over the years, but we are getting to a point where we need to look at it and say, well, how does this meet the current needs of what the skaters have? So we would look to hire a consultant and work with some of our area skaters to say, well, what should our skate park have, and what amenities do we have within the footprint that we have available?
So I just want to confirm that you are intending to involve the skating community. We've had a gentleman, and I did not catch his name, I'm sure you know who he is, but that spoke to us in the last year or so. I don't remember, but he seemed incredibly well-versed at the Urbandale and Metro skating. I think he lives in Urbandale as well, but I'd want to make sure we involve people like him, young and old, to make sure, we have one of the best in the country downtown now, and I think we need to make sure we're, complementing that. Even though we had one before them.
Right.
But, we're not going to compete, but.
Right, we would complement, right? We would look to complement what's already available in the area, and absolutely to reach out to our area skaters, along with experts that know the trends a little bit. And actually, they'll come in and help us speak the lingo with them, because I don't know anything about skating. But we do the same with, like, we'll mention the disc golf expansion. We'll do the same there as well, too. We want to make sure.
We know a guy.
We do know a guy, right, right. But we want to make sure and reach out to our locals, whether it's for, when we did the playground at Sylvan Ridge, we reached out to the neighborhood to see what they wanted. So we do think it's important as well to make sure we communicate with all of our users, so.
I think it's a really good idea, just anecdotally, as somebody who goes past that basically daily, the use seems to have increased, probably in combination with the pandemic, and then also just the fact that the interest has been generated by downtown. So
yes,
I think you guys are being smart to look at that.
Right, and just as a point of reference, we're seeing a younger crowd, right? I think a lot of the older skaters might go down to the larger one. But the younger, smarter people know to stay in Urbandale and be on ours, so. Let me try. This is for some improvements at Walker Johnson Park. And this is in 2027, so it's a few years out. Last year, we replaced a lot of the internal fencing along the baselines. This would be to replace some of the 10-foot outfield fencing as well. And then in a future year to make some other improvements to the facility, whether it's improvements in the lighting and improvements in the playing field as well in an out year.
So I guess on this though, with the lighting improvement piece, going to the LEDs, I'm guessing is an operational cost savings. We've kind of got this programmed out of ways. Is there a time to just do it earlier for the operational cost savings and equipment's not available with the lighting piece?
Right. Some of this is dealing with just the timing of, well, when do we need to replace our current fixtures, right? And not pull them out too soon before their end of their life. It is coming down in pricing as well too. So the cost savings, or at least it was, I don't know if recently, if it's gone back up. I haven't priced it for a little while. But, making sure that, again, we don't want to pull them out too early. And there's still some needs for some other things in there too as well. So we always have to balance that a little bit on where we are with capital improvement projects too. So, but.
So like an automatic sensor when you hit a home run that the lights do a chaser or something?
Colors.
Colors, yes.
But yeah, they're obviously much more efficient and there's a cost recover on those. So our next project is actually a 2023 project. And this is a water trail or a water access point. And it is part of a few pieces of master plans, but this would be right here in Walker Johnson Park. Here's the location. I'm gonna pull up this image here. This would be for Better Creek access here at Walker. We found just the amount of kids that are participating in going down to the creek out at Barrett. It's amazing. For years, we've tried to say, don't interact with the creek, right? Don't do any of that, but there's a lot of value in that, and a lot of children and parents love to have that opportunity. So this would be to create an access point there at Walker Johnson. Just as a point of reference, this darker brown shade here, that's the current treehouse. So you would have a choice. You could go into the treehouse area, or you could go down and access and be close to the creek area. Again, and then this little area here, large enough for outdoor classroom. Obviously, we have a brand new large elementary school going up close by to be able to come down and have a place to kind of gather, to sit a little bit and make that easy access is what that design is for. So.
Can you go back to that map?
The creek? This one or this one?
No, well, the yellow, is that supposed to show where it is? I don't think.
Yeah, the yellow and the other don't match.
Is it too far north?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too far north.
I'm not good at maps.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's it is all kind of south of Giovanetti. So if that helps. So yeah, that is on the wrong side there. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, Giovanetti is kind of right about here, I'd say. So. This would be to expand our current 13-hole disc golf course to an 18-hole disc golf course, a little bit more traditional in its length, which would help if, for hosting small tournaments and that sort of thing. We also have, just so you know, in the a plan to do in 2024 also through the shelters would be to have a small, just an open air shelter there as well too, as kind of a starting point for people that might be participating in those activities. So it would probably yep.
So just with this one, since we do have the U.S. champion, is that what his title is? Is there any private fundraising opportunities with this to enhance what we're already looking to do with, whether it's better tee pads or signage along the way, things like that? And there's a lot of items with disc golf that can make the round a little better.
Right. Just some additional enhancements. So yeah, that is something that we can definitely make sure and have some discussions about and see what's available out there, either through grants or just private fundraising as well too with that market for sure.
Somebody might have connections to like Prodigy Discs or something.
Right.
Just might happen to have.
Yeah.
It's his own course.
It is, and I'm not sure what he designs I want to play, but.
Yeah, I'm more of a par 3 disc golf course kind of person.
Yeah, Interstate Battery is great for that.
So this is a Park Road connection. This is the Walnut Creek Regional Park. Here is the new large shelter. This would be to continue the road all the way down to Douglas. Part of the finalization and the priority of this is based on the development in that little area and how that proceeds and moves forward. So that's in Curtis's court, not mine, so. So yeah, that is listed a couple years out, and again, based on the development around Douglas Avenue there. This is also an out year, but the master plan for the regional park always included an enclosed shelter / nature center. So this is in there as an out year as well too. And no location really identified. This is the regional playground, which aligns with the new recreation complex that we are looking to do, but this is listed as a separate item. Again, we are extremely optimistic on the goals of the new recreation complex, so we would never question that. But we do want to be able to have an option for some playground out in that area as well. So this, with or without, that would be something that we want to continue forward with.
So it's not redundant, it would be in addition to the bond referendum item?
Correct.
Okay.
This is a interior access within the Walnut Creek Regional Park. This is Horizons Ridge Park here, over here on the left, 156th, and then Douglas. The city will soon be the proud owners of this little parcel of land, thanks to the city of Waukee needing to connect to their sewer system. So we will have the availability now to connect here, again, right off of Horizons Ridge, all the way over to this other piece of trail, the Bob Layton Trail that goes up and connects to the large shelter. So that will be a great connection for us when it is all said and done. That's planned in 2024. We'll have the property sooner than that, but we've got to do design plans and all of that stuff, so. Oh, and then I go to bridges. So I'm back on parks in case there's any other questions for me. And I will turn it.
Are we just allowed to comment on how great the lighting display is out here? Thank you, Parks people, Park and Recreation Commission, City Council. I mean, the thing's just fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you, and thank members of council that helped support that project to move that one forward. So we're very excited about it, so.
It's primo.
Look for in future budgets a storage place for all the lights they want to find in addition, so.
We need to go back to that.
We aren't there yet, but.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, back to John for bridges, unless there are other questions on parks. Okay. Big section on bridges.
Yep, so similar to how Scott did it, I'll just quickly mention anything that's in an out year. If you want any more information, interrupt me. I'll go into more detail, otherwise I'm just gonna quickly go through it. And then any that are in the current 5 years, any questions, just stop me, otherwise I'll just keep moving on to the next page. So our first one here is called the Urban Hills Bridge over Walnut Creek. So as a point of reference, Scott just said, here's where we're looking to expand the disc golf course and having the trail come through. We have 156th Street on the east, Waterford on the south, and 170th Street on the west. Basically, with the creek that comes through here and goes to the west and also to the northwest, we felt it was critical to have at least one more north-south street between that mile section. So that's why we've got it set up that a portion of the bridge and connection will be paid by the developers on the south side, and a portion will be paid by the developers on the north side, and then the remainder by the city. Really, the timing of this, we've got it in 2025, but it's going to depend on when the development to the north occurs. And really, since this area to the south is just in the process of being platted, I still think it's a little bit out, but we want to at least be ready if development does occur to be able to react and get the bridge constructed. And then our next one is just a little further west. So this is 170th and Waterford. And this is if we're able to extend Waterford to the west, we need either a triple box culvert or bridge, and that is in an out year. Yeah, and that's another one that'll be driven by development.
Any questions on bridges? Okay. Sidewalks.
Okay. So on page 41 is our ADA pedestrian access route transition plan. Basically, that's where we replace our ADA ramps every year. Our goal, based on our transition plan, is to spend $100,000 a year. You can see the blue is where all the ramps we have in town. The ones in pink are the ones that we plan to do next year. So again, just every year we do $100,000 worth of work.
And I guess this is also limited by the ability of a intern to get the design work done. Are they able to do more design if they had more dollars here?
We always could. I could just, again, it's not the interns. We actually do that with our own staff, not during the summer. The interns are more involved in walking the sidewalks, looking for the defects and doing that program. The reason, originally staff had proposed a larger dollar. At that time, council wanted it at the 100,000 only because it seems like every 5 to 10 years they change the rules and we have to go back and replace the ones we already did. So they weren't trying to do them all immediately. The other issue that we see is within Iowa, a little bit of frost heave and you're out of compliance. So you really end up chasing your tail and never quite catching up. So again, that was just the history on why the previous council said 100,000. And then let's see, page 42. This is our Hickman Road Railroad Viaduct Trail. This one's been in the CIP and in process for several years now. We're still having a few issues getting everything approved with the railroad to go under the railroad tracks. I guess I should say this is connection from our Parks and Public Works facility on Hickman to get us over to the frontage road. It would allow, park staff to bring their mowers and things to the east side of the railroad tracks. And also ultimately we'd be able to do more trail connections that would work within our Complete Streets Master Plan. But like I said, we're just running into issues still, getting approval from the railroad. And then we've also run into a little bit of issue with Des Moines Water Works that we're working through. So goal is still to bid that out this winter and construct it next year. It's just a matter of everything falling into place for us. Our next one is the Hickman Trail connection between 100th Street and 111th Street. So we have Hickman Interchange over here, 100th Street. I'll talk a little more about the Hickman Interchange, but with that project, the trail will come through the interstate over towards 111th, and the goal of this is to connect from there, take us over to 100th Street and connect to our north-south trail along 100th Street. We're currently planning that to be in 2027. And this next slide is just our sidewalks in various locations. A lot of this is to construct the sidewalks during our arterial projects. Just the funding with that is included with the arterial sidewalks. It used to be more for connecting gaps. We've filled in most gaps in our sidewalk. We also on occasion will add some bond in there if we needed to fix more of the city sidewalks as part of our sidewalk program. We kind of keep a balance in there as that gets down. Then we bond for more money to keep repairing the sidewalks that are our responsibility. On page 45, this is the 114th Street sidewalk construction project between Douglas Avenue and Meredith Drive. This is one where we've looked at it and talked to the property owners. The majority of the property owners in this area is R&R Realty. And with this Aurora Business Park, it just helps them retain clients or businesses and promote getting new ones in is to have sidewalks that makes the business park walkable. Right now, this was done back in the days when they just did not build sidewalks in business parks. So it's kind of a joint venture where we would pay for half of the sidewalk, they would pay for the other half of the sidewalk. And based on their timing, it's in a 3-year program. So the first year in 2024, we'd make sure we had a connection from Aurora up to Meredith Drive on the west side of 114th. Then in 2025, we'd continue down to Douglas and then come back in 2026 and get one along Aurora that would connect with the pond and the walkway around it.
I guess for me, a question on this was with the Complete Streets Master Plan, and we're kind of going 8 foot for some of those things, and this being a major employment center with trails on Meredith, trails on Douglas, why 5 feet versus wider?
The 8 foot one, there'd be probably a lot of grading and a lot of their landscaping would have to come out. It's just not that much room on coming through there. That's also partially why we're looking on the west side, like on the east side, south of Aurora, down by Continental Western. That would take a lot of significant grading to get a sidewalk to work in there. So again, ideally, we like the wider, but I think here, just the 5 foot fits the surrounding world a little better.
Okay. But then if we go back a couple, for the viaduct one, we're willing to spend $1 million there to go from 4 feet to basically same width.
And, right, there's two things on the viaduct one. One, it's the cost of going under the bridge. That's very expensive. And two, we have a narrow sidewalk there today. If you walk it, it's not as comfortable. We'll be right next to Hickman Road. That's why we've kind of pushed things back. So we also have retaining walls and things to do on the bank there. I guess that was our last
Questions on sidewalks? And we've kind of reached that 7:30-ish time. Knowing that if you notice, it's storm water this year.
I did notice that. I actually went back to last year's copy, and because I couldn't remember what we said, and that was storm sewer. I was very pleased. Thank you.
So maybe one more section and take a break. Does that work?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so, yep, so we're on page 47. And basically, this is our creek and stream drainage improvements at various locations. So basically, with this, we have funding to improve the creeks and streams and try to reduce erosion. They're projects that are either designed by the city or by a consultant hired by the city. Right now, we're finally having our first project out to bid that was designed by a consultant, which are typically our larger projects. The bids are due back December 7th on that. Then after that, we'll start working towards another RFP process to hire somebody else to do the next larger project. In the meantime, we still continue to do smaller city projects that we design that may be erosion around a flared-in section or the flared-in section's fallen off. So we do those repairs or smaller bank projects. But again, for the larger ones, we've been hiring consultants for. And we use $350,000 per year is what we've got budgeted for those improvements.
What's the project you have out? What's the project you have out for bid right now?
On Walnut Creek, that's just north of Hickman. That's the one that it's out to bid right now.
Okay.
On page 48 is our intake rebuilding program. All the green just shows the little over 8,000 intakes that we do have in the city. We've had a goal since 2014 to replace roughly 40 intakes a year with a contractor. Then we also do separate intake replacements with our city crews. Unfortunately, in 2022, the bids came in significantly higher than what we had budgeted, so we rejected those bids. But in this year, the 2023 project, we're looking to combine those dollars to do some improvements there. And then we've actually got this, I think we had asked every year, we've actually capped it now at 2025, the next 3 years. After that's done, we'll kind of evaluate if we need to do more, but I think we're catching up on the intakes we need to repair. Most of those were the ones that are the block style versus now they're all poured concrete walls, so they last a lot longer. Okay, and then on page 49 is the Merle Hay Reinvestment District Stormwater Improvements Project. Kind of an odd name. It's what it was called when we were going after a grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant, so but it kept the name. So with this one, what we're looking at is with Merle Hay Mall here on the east, Douglas Avenue here along the south. And then we've had areas along Airline and Madison up kind of to the west and northwest of the mall that have flooded in the past. So this is going to be our first step in constructing a storm sewer that would run along the mall ring road, then come between Little Slofts and the IHOP, then outlet down at Rockland Creek. We'd be installing roughly 700 feet of an 8x10 concrete box. And then I will show a little bit later a couple extensions that we'll have to the west that'll help with the neighborhood. So our goal is, since the water can't really flow down the streets, it flows kind of around the houses, is to get it a storm sewer that'll handle 100-year storms and move it around the neighborhoods. That's a project that, again, we're working on completing right away. We've talked to all the businesses about the project, and they all seem supportive. We just have to get the easements from them and then try to bid that out here shortly and construct it next year in 2023.
What analysis has been done on what happens at the end of this pipe?
Correct. The same. Actually, we've had Rockland Creek study, so that's been done in the past. And then the same consultant that did that study is also doing this design. So that's part of theirs is the dissipation and stuff that we have at the outlet.
Okay.
And then on, let's see, page 50 is some improvements on Oliver Smith over to 72nd, just east of the Karen Acres School, but that is in an out year. On page 51, there's the removal of a couple old roadway culverts from back when this being 100th Street used to come through up to the interstate. Now we have Meredith here and our 104th, Sutton, up to the 100th Street is where it got rerouted. So there's two old culverts there. Appears the property owner on the north side would like theirs to stay. If it gets removed, it would definitely cut off how they access their property up at the north end. And that one's in a lot better shape. The one on the south end is in the park and is starting to collapse. So we're putting a design together to remove that and open the channel back up. And that is planned to be bid out this winter, possibly even some construction done yet this winter.
If the one on the north is not, we're not going to do that, is that reflected in the cost?
It is not. Right now, that's the cost to do both. But right now, the property owner appears did not want us to do it. We do not have an easement or a right to be there, so we could not do it.
Is there a house somewhere in here?
Yeah, there's a house down here. So this property owner owns all of this. This one down here is in a park. And we have an easement to access it.
Okay. So does that free us up like half the money to?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's still within the stormwater utility, so I mean, it doesn't help GOB or anything like that.
Might reduce the amount of lost money spent at Merle Hay. Maybe.
And our next one is on page 52. This is the Roseland Drive storm sewer improvements. So a little background here that, we just talked a little bit about up here at Monroe and Oliver Smith being in an out year. We recently had an analysis done to look at our storm sewer system, and as everybody can pretty much imagine, east of 86th Street is smaller than it should be. So we started looking at some key areas to replace storm sewer. As you can kind of see, as I was saying, this area we're looking up in here, there is no storm sewer today. Our green lines is our current storm sewer. And all the drainage today kind of comes through Karen Acres Elementary, and then it goes through some pipes that run between houses, through some pipes between some more houses to get to the creek. So our goal would be to come in here and add a pipe system that would basically move this drainage over to here and be the right size to handle the flows. With this project, the exact limits have not been determined. We're still just basing it off that original, high-level study. When we hire in 2024 a consultant to do the design, that's when we'll determine exact limits, how many years it'll be. This will likely be a 2 or 3 year project, and then we'll be able to fine tune, our costs and exactly what we're going to do for improvements. This is just kind of giving you a general idea of what we'd like to improve in this area. Again, it'd be adding storm sewer in an area that currently has very limited storm sewer.
And so then, with this type of project, I'm guessing it's some significant street tear up and so forth.
Correct.
And so there's a water main project later on. I mean, so coordinating the water mains with street repair.
Correct. And yep, I have talked to the water utility. It's going to be a matter of once we figure out where our limits are, we can coordinate a little bit better. And then this is one I'd made reference to before. That's a new project, is making the connections here to the storm sewer going in by the mall by doing the area in pink here. and tying in the storm system. What's kind of nice is before this, all our storm sewer to the north keeps running through these same pipes all the way down here. Once we make this connection over the larger pipe, it takes this flow in this area off of the area down here, which helps things out. And then we've got another small piece that we can add in here, which again, takes this flow over to here and more flow off of what's happening in the rest of the neighborhood. So by moving some of the flows to the east, we actually help with the flooding in the neighborhoods then. And this also gives us the ability in the future, as you can see, there's no storm sewer in this area. So that gives us the ability to take this and expand it to the west, provide storm sewer and also some services and things to the properties along here. So this one right now, we've got planned in 2027. And then our last one in the stormwater is the 66th Street storm sewer improvements. We've got several different runs in here, doing some improvements on Townsend between 70th over to, 66th Street, improvements on 66th Street that'll take us back to the creek here, and also doing improvements on 65th here, which basically has no storm sewer. So this is just like the other ones. As we get into the design, we'll kind of fine tune exactly where the work's gonna be, what streets are replaced, and where we do the storm sewer. This may be such that, again, we may have to do some work along Meredith, we'll determine that, or there might be some ways to run some different sump services on other side streets. Again, we'll know that more once we truly get into design and can look at all the elevations and all potential conflicts that we have with water and sanitary.
Okay.
Comment here.
Okay.
As you folks know, I've been a strong advocate of storm sewer improvements. And, you know, discussed here again tonight, we had a high-level study here a few years ago, and I think we identified that time $90+ million worth of projects. And a lot of, you know, there's a lot of Urbandale, east of 86th Street, just like we've been talking here tonight, doesn't have any storm sewers. I was going to go back to, way back to the financial statement, page A2, why this year I was very pleased to see that we're going to spend a total of $8,700,000 on storm sewers. Well, way back when I started advocating for this thing, I tossed out the concept of spending $10 million a year for 9 to 10 years, that maybe it would whip this problem. Well, now what's bothering me here a little bit is I go and look again on page A2. Next year, we're only planning on spending $1 million. And the year after that, $1.2 million. Sorry, I got my glasses on, $3 million. Anyway, I think we need to think seriously if we're ever going to arrive on this problem. We're going to have to drastically step up our spending on this subject. And as far as I'm concerned, I would much rather spend that money here than I would, for example, in this recreation center. We'll let the voters decide that. But we're never, at this financial pace as outlined here, we are never going to arrive. Now, we need to really take a hold of this problem, get after it. Now, I like what I'm seeing here. Yeah, we're heading in the right direction, but we need to step up the pace as much as we can handle engineering-wise. And of course, we can't have every street in Urbandale tore up at the same time doing these storm sewers. So it's going to have to be there's going to have to be paced here. But I'd still like to see if we can't get this thing done in 10 years. Anyway, that's my comment. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Other stormwater.
Yeah, I have one more question, a little bit about, you said something about the Rockland Creek drainage piece.
Yep.
Right, and I know we had a big flood there a few years ago. It seems like we're putting more water in that retention center now, and I'm wondering kind of how that...
It's the same water that's always gone there, and actually with the mall, I don't have the drawings, but I think like the mall was like 50 acres drained in there. The entire watershed's like 200 and some acres that drain there. Probably half of it comes from the city of Des Moines that comes down to there. So we're actually a fairly small part of the overall picture of the water that drains there.
But does that 100-year flood, does that solve the same problem we had if we get another rainfall, the last time it's going to repeat.
They're still gonna have the same problem. Really, they need to be bought out and move is the only way to save them. There is nothing you could do. They're in the floodplain today. So going back in time, they never should have built there to begin with.
And was some talk about a retention pond in that area somewhere at one of the last CIP meetings, maybe a couple of years ago?
At the study, the study was looked at having detention and things like that. We'd have to take out the entire neighborhood to make a difference. And so that really wasn't a viable option there. Not to mention it'd be all private property we'd have to acquire.
So one of the advantages of what the mall is doing, though, is the area north of the mall used to come through the mall. It now goes east.
Okay.
So there are some improvements up in the mall area that should help, but.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's still going to come this way. A lot of it does now for their first phases, and they'd still have to build their detention to the north.
Maybe they could just put it on the ice rink and freeze it for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Some really thick ice.
Just for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think our project's going to have a lot of impact one way or another on those properties down to the south.
Other questions before we take a 5-10 minute break? Let John rest his voice for that, or our other option too is to, once we come back from the break, think about it if we want to continue this on Thursday night too. So we have that set aside.
Continuing to go, so.
Yep, but we'll take about a 10-minute break and come back. Since it sounds like we're wanting to trudge through and we just all got bribed with more sugar, there's more. So I figure I better get back to this and get into the next section, streets. Unless there's any questions we want to go through otherwise. All right, streets it is.
Okay, so starting off on page 55, that's our annual street rehabilitation program. A couple things to note here. In 2023 and 2024, some of those fundings have gone to other projects. I'll talk about them in a minute, but the 2023 apportions on our Aurora Avenue Preservation Project, which is the next page. And then in 2024, when we do our urbanization of Douglas Avenue, we've also done some maintenance money in there as well. That's just why those two numbers are small compared to looking at the $2.5 million as we go on out. Next year's program, working on an area to the north of Meredith Drive, east of 72nd Street, kind of in the Lochner and Plum Drive area. And this is all based on our annual street maintenance plan. Oops. On page 53 is the one I just mentioned, the Aurora Avenue Preservation, 86th Street to Tanglewood Drive. So 86th Street, Meredith Drive to the north. Looking to come through this area. We've done quite a bit of patching outside of Tanglewood on past projects. Now this one will involve some patching and some total reconstructions through here. There's just parts of the road that are in such rough condition that we need to completely replace that. There's other parts we can do with patching, and we're looking to bid this out in the January, February time frame and construct it this next summer, spring and summer.
So it's not an overlay?
No.
Okay.
Nope. And then page 57, this is a project that we've just completed. All the roadway work, still have to do some sidewalks and trails on, it'd be, like I said, on Aurora Avenue. It's got the longest name. Up to, we've got 104th to Sutton, up to 100th Street. The reason it's still in the CIP is normally once we've bid the project, it comes out. This one originally had 2 years worth of funding, so it's still in the CIP as we're doing the second year worth of funding. But again, most of this project is done, open to traffic, just have some sidewalks and trails to finish in the spring. On page 50.
Chairman, I'd like to ask a question, comment. Going back to your previous screen here, yeah.
Yep.
Intersection there with Meredith Drive. You know, it's a thing I've complained about before, and once again, we've got it. Now, that intersection has been under construction here for, I would say, 4 to 5 weeks now. And a great inconvenience to the people on Meredith. I mean, John knows this. Anyway, it seems to me that the contractor there is taking a very lackadaisical, I'll get to it when I get to it, proposition. We lay some concrete and we don't finish the job. Somehow, and this is not a new problem. We've had it before and I've complained about it before, but we need to get written into our specifications that these situations where we have interference with traffic flow needs to be written into our plans and specifications. They get this work done promptly. And if they're not going to work on it, get the barriers down so that you don't have narrowed down traffic things. And I know it's a bad problem, but anyway, it's something that I think it's something we need to pay more attention to. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so then page, oops, did I jump ahead? 50, I just got to turn my own page. There we go. So on page 58 is the Aurora Avenue, 86th Street to 70th Street, on-street bike lanes. I want to jump out of this just to kind of talk about this one a little bit. Just to give you a little more background, I was going to go back to a portion of our lunch and learn that we had from our consultant to talk about the Aurora section. I figure that shows it a little bit better. So a little bit about Aurora Avenue. So our street is in the 41 to 42 foot back-to-back section. It's a 4 lanes of travel. We have traffic in the neighborhood of 4,600 vehicles per day with a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. So as we kind of look at what's being proposed, here's our existing conditions. So we've got the 4 lanes of traffic. We've got 4 10-foot lanes. What we're looking at is an area where we would have 3 lanes. That'd be a through lane in each direction and a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. Those areas would be at 86th Street where we've got the signal, in front of the middle school, and then 72nd Street / the high school over to 70th Street. We'd have this 3-lane section in the middle and then a 5-foot bike lane on each side. And in the areas that we were not, in those areas of the 3 lanes where we had a 2-lane, where it'd be a little bit different is we'd have 2 12-foot lanes, a 3-foot painted buffer strip, and then a 5-foot bike lane on the outsides. Oops. So with that project, like I said, that's proposed to be constructed in 2023.
And this requires milling.
Correct. This one, sorry, I should have said that. This project does have milling on it. Basically, we'll mill off 1.5 inches, put back 1.5 inches asphalt, just so we can have clean pavement markings. I think if we went out there and just tried to mill the markings out of the asphalt, we'd have marks everywhere in the street, and then we'd come back and put new paint over a little ways from them. So in order to cut down on the confusion is to mill off the surface and put back a new surface for clean markings.
And is the surface needing milling, or is it just for the lanes?
Just for the lanes, correct. It was probably, I have to guess, I don't know, it was 10 years ago is when we did a major patch and overlay, so we wouldn't take the full 3 inches off. It's still holding up well enough that we just take that surface course off.
Chairman, another comment here. I know there's a lot of opposition to this bike lane thing on Aurora, and I'm certainly opposed to it. I think it's a mistake, and I think I'll leave it just the way it is. I'm thoroughly familiar with what they've done in the city of Des Moines, and we don't need that disease out here. Thank you.
Okay, our next one is page 59. This is the reconstruction of Aurora Avenue between roughly 128th Street and 142nd Street. This is currently in an out year. Page 60 is our community entrance signage. We had a master plan completed that kind of lined out where we should put entrance signs so people realize when they've come into Urbandale. So far, we've done, in 2020, we put one at 100th Street and Hickman Road, and we also did one on 156th Street at our south corporate limit with Clive. Then we came in 2021 and did 2 monuments at the 100th Street interchange and at the Meredith Drive interchange. And what we're proposing in 2023, what it turns out, previously there was concern whether we keep doing this project or not. We got the direction from council to continue going through, but it was too late for our 2022 project. So we're combining 2022 and 2023 together into one project. And what we're looking to do is add signage at Northwest Urbandale Drive and the interstate, which is located here at the red dot. We'd basically replace the current Welcome to Urbandale sign with what we've been doing at the other locations. We'd add one at 100th and 54th Street with our border with Johnston, so as you're coming into Urbandale, you would know you're in Urbandale, and 128th Street and our kind of our north border. So again, as you're coming through Grimes and you're coming into Urbandale, you know that. And then we'd also add one at 86th Street and North Park, 86th Street and the interstate. So again, give us more identity at the interchange. And then we're also looking at one down here to 104th and Hickman by the business park. We also have several other years, but just kind of hitting on the main ones we're looking to do here shortly. Next one on page 61 is a new sheet. It's the Douglas Avenue preservation from 111th Street to 121st Street. So it's through the Douglas interchange. This would be a patching project that we would be doing in 2026. On page 62 is kind of our infamous Douglas Avenue redevelopment page. This is one where we're still hopeful that once we get through our, I'm drawing a blank now, the comp plan, I keep thinking CIP, and that's what we're doing now. The comp plan, then we'll have a better idea of what kind of improvements we want to start programming. I believe this would likely probably be multiple pages as we kind of come up with, or at least multiple projects as we come up with what we want to do in the downtown area.
And there's some dollars kind of tagged by council. Do you remember, or Nikki, do you remember what the dollar amount was that was tagged by council from the American Rescue Plan?
4.5, okay.
We're going to put that at least in the narrative. This was printed before that.
Okay, so there would be, there's a $3 million difference between your numbers I'm hearing, right?
The buying up land versus direct incentives to the business owners. There was two different pieces of that, so we can put in whatever you like.
Okay, so the numbers that would be in the narrative would be what?
Whichever, you want both of them or just the,
Sure, it included all. So that was American Rescue Plan dollars. The city got 6.6. There's kind of a schedule that the council has laid out of where they go, where that 6.6 goes. 4-ish million was designated as kind of in this category. And so that's what would go in the narrative when they figure out what number to put in. So.
The next one is page 63. This is our Douglas Avenue urbanization. So we just recently completed the urbanization from the creek over to 100th Street. And now we're currently having a contractor working on some beautification in this area that'll continue into the spring. So the next phase that we have is in 2024. This would be the urbanization from 86th Street east to Elm Drive. This will actually be our last section of urbanization that we need to complete. And as I'd mentioned, that we will do some maintenance. There's an area by the Mid-American substation where we'll do a mill, patch, and overlay project. And then we'll also, if anything's needed eastbound, westbound, we'll also do patches on that as well. And then we're looking at in the 2025 to actually go from 100th Street west to the east side of the Douglas interchange with a beautification project. And then we've got some other future beautification projects in the out years. On page 64 is the Douglas Avenue Railroad Crossing replacement. We've currently got that in 2026. We're looking to actually do some repairs on there to kind of bide us some time. And then we're still working on getting a grant through the Iowa DOT, and that'll help us determine exactly what year we can do the replacement.
Have you started talking to the railroad?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what's taken quite so long. There's actually been a staff turnover, and that's helped us move along greatly recently. So, yep, we're working with them and in discussions with them.
So we could get it sometime this decade then.
Yep. That's a tough part with the DOT. It's first come, first serve. So it's just, we just get in the queue and then you know when the money becomes available.
As much as I love driving to work and not seeing construction cones for the first time in 7 years, this one and the one prior both have basically the same stretch of road and we're separate dates. So we're 25 on one and 26 on the other. Is there a way to do them both at the same time?
I don't know. I honestly think the 26 is going to push back once we apply for the DOT or with the DOT for the grant, but I don't know that.
Okay.
The other part is typically with the railroad crossing, that happens in a week. So like we did 100th Street and Aurora, the two different crossings, that happened in about a 2-week period. So. Can't have, I know the beautification, that's another one that will take most of a year to complete. So I don't know that you'll notice as much the crossing change, or at least it'll be like shorter duration. Okay, our next one on 65 is a new page, and this is the reconfiguration and reconstruction of the Hickman interchange. Also going to step out here to show you a little more of what's happening there. So just for point of reference, north is to the right. So this is the Douglas interchange over here. Here's Hickman Road, and then the University interchange over here. So what they'll be doing is it's a joint project with the Iowa DOT, the City of Clive, and the City of Urbandale. The majority of the work is being handled by the Iowa DOT. So when they're all done, they'll be adding additional lanes on the interstate. So we'll have 5 lanes north, 5 lanes going south, and at least 1 auxiliary lane going north, 1 south. In other places, you get multiple auxiliary lanes just due to how the ramps are configured. And if we look a little closer on, oops, zoom in a little bit more. I went hit the wrong button. There we go. A look at what's proposed at Hickman is a diverging diamond. So the way that works is, say you were going eastbound and wanted to go north. Today, you'd come through and at the intersection, you go left in front of the traffic and go north. Here, you'll come through, there'll be a signalized intersection, you'll cross to the other side of the road, and you'll have a ramp here to go north. And if you're going straight, you come back through a signalized intersection and you are back on the correct side of the road. So basically, the benefit of the diverging diamond is you do not take left turns in front of oncoming traffic. There's currently one of these in Ankeny and then the one in Waukee. Also want to note that with another project that's on a future page here, we're constructing a trail on the north side of Hickman that'll come to the entrance here to Lifetime Fitness. With this project, it'll pick up that trail, bring it across. We'll go up and over the ramps, go under the interstate and come back up over the ramps and continue over to east of 111th Street. And there'll also be an underpass at Hickman that'll come down by the truck stop and come down and connect to Clive's Greenbelt Trail. So then just to kind of show you some of the other big parts that are going on with this. Since this is an interchange that we have a chance to maybe make an impact with, Clive and Urbandale are really working on kind of the aesthetics part of it, different things we can do to make this a signature interchange. So here we can see here again on the north is the trail coming through, but normally you would just have standard grass medians out there. We're looking at ways to do some stormwater detention in there, add some nicer grasses than just a standard cut lawn look, and some different monuments. This is just kind of our conceptual area. We're just getting ready to go into the actual final design once we get a contract approved with a consultant. Here's just another kind of look of some different features that could be included on the MSE walls, doing a pattern and things like that, and just some different stone type work monuments. And then here's just kind of a rendering. This is, over here is the east side. You're kind of looking northwest. So this kind of shows you how the trail will come along. It'll be up high, go over the ramps, come down, again, go under the interstate, come around, go up over the ramps, come down, and it'll tie back in by Lifetime's entrance there. And then this one here just kind of gives you a little bit different look, looking to the northeast and kind of how that diverging diamond works its way on through the intersection and the interchange here.
Okay.
Question.
Sure.
Tell me again, how much is this bike trail going to cost in this interchange here?
The total amount for Clive and Urbandale that has to do with all the aesthetics, the bike lane, or the trail and everything is roughly $8 million. We also have the consultant hired to help us do several different grants, so we're assuming that amount will come down quite a bit. So the bulk of this, the 60-70 million that goes into the interchange, is the DOT. It's just the enhancements would be the two cities.
Okay, so now I'm understanding, I hear 8 million here, is that a right statement?
Correct, 8 million is what the preliminary estimate is, correct?
It just doesn't seem to me that taxpayers are getting money's worth out of it. I've spoken about this before, but I still don't see it. Thanks.
And then the trail project from 100 to 111th, which is to connect into this.
Correct.
That would be done before this opens or timing wise?
That's why it's still not completely programmed out within the DOT, which parts of the project happen in what years. That's why I put it in the 27. So it should be towards the end of the project. I think the aesthetics could be 27, could be 28. Just want to make sure we get it coordinated. So again, that's why I put 27, trying to hit about the same time the trail was being built with the interchange. And then kind of mentioning that trail. So if we look at page 66, this is the Hickman Road, US Highway 6 at 128th Street intersection improvements. This is a project due to utilities has been under construction for the last 2 years with not a lot of work getting done. When it is done, there'll be dual lefts in all directions at the intersection and then also single right turn lanes added. The best part, I think, for Urbandale on this one is that it was a joint DOT, Clive, Urbandale 1, and since we were picking up most of this project, they were picking up the interchange. With this, we're looking to get a 10-foot trail built from Deer Creek Trail that will continue east over to the Lifetime Fitness, which in turn will connect through the interchange and also connects then back to the west to the Raccoon Valley Trail. So it'll make a really good trail connection there for us. This one, so again, this one, typically once it's bid and everything, it wouldn't no longer be in here, but with the DOT, you don't reimburse them your share until the project's done. So once it's done, then we'll pay them. On page 67 is the Justin Drive Preservation Project, 100th Street to 109th Street. So it's the area in pink showing here. That will be a patch and overlay project that we have scheduled. It's split in 24-25 for funding, but we're anticipating that'll be in 2025. And then page 68 is the medians that Jan's going to speak to you about.
This project involves some public art, so something that I'll cover. It's been a desire from the council and the community that we introduce public art into some of the medians. And I think overall, when the key medians at key intersections is the goal. The purpose tonight is the concept and to get approval for the funding. Right now, we're proposing $150,000 per year for the upcoming years. The actual design, we have the Public Art Committee has been put to task to come up with some design ideas. We have some preliminary design ideas, certainly not something that the CIP committee needs to decide on tonight, but here are some preliminary design ideas where kind of a ribbon type concept, landscaping around it. Here would be a side view. And also one of the other potential, this type of lighted column is part of the Douglas Avenue beautification project that's happening from Walnut Creek, so Walker Johnson Park going west. And this is one of the components that's incorporated into that. So as we look at different concepts, again, not necessarily something the CIP committee tonight needs to decide on, but if it's a repeatable theme that we want to be doing, if there's different concepts, like this could be different colors of character counts, it could be just a ribbon, and not necessarily Urbandale in it. And then the costs certainly just depend on what medians, the size of medians, how long or how big public art would be, what type of landscaping would be incorporated into that. So can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Okay, our next one is the Meredith Drive Preservation Project, 86th Street to 104th Street. So with this project here, we'll be looking to do patching and overlay. And then also on the north side of the road, remove the sidewalk and construct a 10-foot trail. This did receive $500,000 in surface transportation block grant funding and is scheduled for 2025. And then just to the west of that segment is the next page on Meredith Drive from 104th Street to 121st Street. So with this one, we would also be looking at from 104th over to the 114th Street area, a patch and overlay, and then just patching it over to 121st Street. With this project, we'll also look to continue that 10-foot trail from 104th over to Northwest Urbandale Drive. And then that connects to the trail that's to the west of Northwest Urbandale Drive. With this one, we're also potentially going to need to work with Mid-American Energy to underground a little bit of the electrical lines along here. There just isn't quite enough room to fit a trail in there with the power poles and everything. So we've got funding in here to cover that.
And I guess on the funding sources here, so we've got Northwest Marketplace TIF as well as GO bonds. Is all of this fits in Northwest Marketplace, or that's why we have some GO bond money there?
Correct. There's a stretch from 104th over to the commercial area that's not in the TIF district.
Okay.
If when we applied for the money, if we'd have thought of that, we'd have gone just a little bit further and had it in the other project, but didn't realize that at the time. Okay, and then on page 71 is Meredith Drive reconstruction, 170th Street or Alice's Road to 184th Street. This will be a joint project with Clive. Urbandale is on the north side of the road. Clive is on the south side of the road. Right now, I've got it in 2026. That's when I think it'll be needed. Clive would like to see this much later, so I think we'll just keep it there and see if we can't convince them that needs done a little sooner. But just keep in mind on this one, there's a chance this could slide back due to the fact that there's two cities involved.
When does Clive think?
They were thinking 2030.
But they're developing out there.
Their
And you
focus
can only
right
get
now,
there through Waukee.
Yeah, my understanding, their focus is on Alice's Road, and they're concerned on their budget. So,
Well, I guess we need them there too.
yeah. So, yeah. So that's why I said I'm still kind of holding the date here, and we'll see as we get a little closer if we can.
But it's all, when I can go west through that intersection, it's all going to be paved though.
It'll all be, yeah, the asphalt. There's
Yes.
asphalt through there, correct?
I guess I should clarify,
Yep.
paved. No gravel.
Correct.
And am I correct that Waukee asphalted west of Warrior? Or do you know?
I'm not sure they went west. I know they went south. They went south and they did the piece east that we were all joint. Do you know? Okay, I see. And again, it's possible they could have done a project on their own that we were not a part of, but I'm not aware of whether they went west or not.
It's all about the access to Northwest High School. But yeah, I'm very excited to see these, and I'll do my best to pressure Clive.
I think the good thing is we're going through here, we're starting to kind of catch up out west also with our streets. So that's a good thing. That does allow us to focus more on some of the storm sewer ones on the eastern side of town. And then page 72 is a new one. We got North Park Drive here from 86th Street to 100th, and Plum Drive from 86th Street through 100th to Northwest Urbandale Drive. This is just a basic maintenance project to do some patching and do some repair on the brick sections, and scheduling that in 2027.
So on like Plum, some of those brick sections, I guess the joints between the brick section and the rest seem to be breaking down a little bit more than some of the rest.
Borders around there, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And so prior to this, I'm guessing there'll be just general patching happens before that, or?
So that'll all be part of this project, is to take care of that.
Okay.
And 73 is Northwest Urbandale Drive preservation from Douglas Avenue to Meredith Drive. This will be an area that would be a patch and overlay that'll kind of complete the 100th Street Northwest Urbandale Drive corridor from Hickman to the interstate. We'd previously done a project up here And then back in '08, we did 100th Street between Hickman Road and Douglas Avenue. So again, this maintenance project is scheduled for 2026. On page 74 is the reconstruction of 54th Avenue from roughly 1,000 feet west of 100th Street to our west corporate limits. That's just kind of our portion of the project that needs to be done right here. This is our border with Grimes, so this will be a joint project with Grimes where they'll do the north side of the road, we have the south side, and then they'll also continue it over to just west of the creek. So basically, we'll complete 54th Avenue between 100th Street and 141. Grimes will be the lead, and we did get some STP, or Surface Transportation Block Grant funding of $500,000 on the project, and that's scheduled to occur in 2025. Okay, and then on page 75 is the Urbandale Avenue trail from 68th Street to 70th Street. That's a stretch right in here. There's currently a trail to the east that ties into the Des Moines trail system. So we're just going to take out the sidewalk and widen this out into a trail for a better connection. Then we'll talk in a minute about the complete streets portion of 70th Street, which this also ties into. This is scheduled for 2024. On page 76 is the Waterford Road extension to the west of 170th Street. That is in an out year and will really be kind of developer driven. And then on 77 is our 70th Street, Meredith Drive to Hickman Road bike lanes. So I'll hop out and go to these other details. So 70th Street, similar to Aurora, at the north end is a 41-foot back-to-back street. When we're down south of Urbandale Avenue, it's 25 feet to 31 feet back-to-back, narrower street. So it's 2 to 4 lanes, depending on which section you're in. The north section is 6,000 to 7,500 vehicles a day. And then when you go south of Urbandale Avenue, it's more closer to 4,100 vehicles a day, with the speed limits 35 to the north, 25 to the south. One of the recommendations is we'd like to change the north part to 25 as well through the corridor, and then just kind of explain what's happening. So when we look at the area from Hickman Road up to Urbandale Avenue today, in the 25-foot section, we've got roughly 12.5-foot lanes, 2 lanes. That's not wide enough to designate a certain area for the bicycles, so we would look at using sharrows and basically tell the people to share the lane through there. And then on our little bit wider spot where we get up to the 31-foot back-to-back, which currently is the 2 lanes, we'd still have 2 lanes. We would just narrow them up to 10 foot and then add bicycle lanes to the outside. The area further to the north where there are 4 lanes today, we would look at through the 3-lane section, which would be at the intersection with Douglas, with Aurora, and with Meredith. We would have a 10-foot two-way left turn lane, a 10-foot lane in each direction, and then a 5-foot bike lane on each side. And where we were not in an area that had the 3-lane configuration, we'd be able to have 2 12-foot lanes, a 3-foot painted buffer, and then, of course, the bike lane to the outside of that.
I just have to comment that there are challenges with sharrows in that unless they're everywhere, then people only think it applies when they're on those particular streets. I'm sure you're aware of that. It's a challenge.
Yeah, that's what we looked at, but there really was no way to widen any of this section either.
But maybe don't bother with the sharrows.
Just a question too on,
sure.
Is there street parking? There currently is street parking on 70th.
Correct.
So that would
remain.
And
Basically, if somebody was parked there and you're on your bike, you would just have to go merge into the lane, go around them and come back. There's not typically a lot of parking there, but there is the occasional parking. So yep, we would work around that and maintain that parking.
But it's only parking on the 4-lane sections, right? Not on the 2-lane.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And both this and Aurora kind of have a final design piece. When does that get done? Whether is it council that'll finally approve the design piece?
Basically, I think we would go through, once the CIP is adopted, then we would look to bring the plans to go out to bid. So I'm looking, the January timeframe, whether it's the same night as the CIP or 2 weeks later, somewhere in that timeframe. On page 78 is our 82nd Street reconstruction project. So this is just east of 86th Street, north side of Douglas. This project will actually be in conjunction with the Douglas urbanization. Right now, there's about 400 feet north of Douglas on 82nd that's in rough shape and does not drain real well. It's really, really flat, no storm sewer, no intakes. So what we're gonna look to do is reconstruct that and change the grade a little bit in the street so we can add storm sewer. And at the same time, the frontage road is in rough shape, so we'd also replace that while we're in here doing the urbanization. So that'll happen the same time as our urbanization project in 2024.
And also here, from a design standpoint, is there potential that that 82nd Street access kind of gets shut down and it all flows the frontage road?
That is something we're actually looking at. Wanted to have our consultant look a little further into that, if that made sense or not.
Because it's a weird spot.
Correct. Page 79 is the reconstruction of 111th Street paving south of Justin Drive, just east of the interstate. This one's in an out year, and it will be based on development. When a development starts occurring in this area, we'll be ready to construct the street, and then we could move it up as necessary. Page 80 is another one of our preservation projects. It's on 121st Street between Douglas Avenue and Meredith Drive. This would be a patching project through this area in 2024. On page 81 is the 128th Street preservation project. This is another one of the projects that is completed, that we've done the full reconstruction and the patching that was required. It just happened to be one that the bids came in a little over what we'd anticipated, so we included the page in here again for a little additional funding. The contractor has a little bit of irrigation restoration work to complete, but for the most part, the project is done. And then page 82 is 142nd Street, a connection from Douglas up to Meredith. And this is the reconstruction for it, and it is in an out year. And then page 83 is the next segment to the north on 142nd Street from Meredith Drive to Waterford Road. This is a joint project with Clive. Urbandale will be the lead. This little area in here is in Clive.
And where?
Excuse me, Clive. Yep, Grimes, you're correct. Working with. Yep, the Grimes we're here with. So we're proposing to do this project in 2025.
But that is one of those areas that could eventually revert to Urbandale or not. That's always going to be Grimes.
That's always going to be Grimes, correct. There was an area right here that could and has recently come into Urbandale.
Okay.
The area.
The north half of that is what is always going to be Grimes.
Yep. So basically the area we were talking about for that is the parcel here on the north side of Meredith and this area here on the south side of Meredith. So we're just a little north of that. And then our next piece is the next section to the north on 142nd Street, north of Meredith, or excuse me, Waterford Road. On this one thing just to note, that we've had an overlay scheduled in here and it keeps kind of sliding back. Basically, it's twofold. If we look, right now, Urbandale only goes north a half mile. The next half mile is in the county on the west side. That's an area we'd like to annex. I think it'd be best if we were going to do the overlay to be able to do the whole mile, not just halfway. And the other part is we've been holding off. There's a lot of development that's going to occur in this area that we know is coming in the next year or two, that we would really like to get those concrete trucks back there, the house is built, before we put them on the new asphalt, which tends to be rough on the asphalt. That would make it last a lot longer. So we're kind of watching the development in this area, and then the total reconstruction of this area is in an out year.
Is this the county line
That's
here?
County Line Road, yep.
Okay.
So Grimes is on the east side for this project.
So the area that you said we wanted to annex is in Dallas County?
Correct. Correct, that's the area up here. So this is Grimes, and then our annexation agreement goes across Meadow Drive here. As we move over, this is already in Urbandale.
The whale tail.
So page 85 is the reconstruction of 156th Street from Waterford Road up to Meadow Drive. This one I've got in 2026, but I could also see this one sliding back. Couple things on that. So we have development going on in this area here in the new Waukee School, but the top of their school boundary is here. So most of the traffic's going to be coming up from the south. I don't see a lot of traffic yet coming from the north. In this area here, we do not have any development plans or anything, so we do not have any of the right-of-way. We'd have to purchase that. And we also, without a development plan, really don't know where the full intersections would be or where to put the left turn lanes with a pretty large drainage way coming through. So again, I could see this one sliding back until we had a little more development in the area.
Okay, I haven't driven north of, up at the top of the map, up 142nd Street, there's another, is that another school up there? Is that
Correct.
DCG's, one of their? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Elementary Central out there.
So page 86 is our current project on 170th Street or Alice's Road. Quick little update on that. Again, we had the weather turn on us at the wrong time, but we're getting everything pieced together so we can get this opened up here before too long. The Meredith Drive has been constructed. They've been working on today, getting the temporary asphalt in west of the intersection. That'll still need to come back out next year so we can do it per spec, but we're getting it open to where we can at least open it up through the winter. At the same time, we've got constructed up to almost Hickory and some temporary pavements put in there as well so that we can open it back up for north-south. Next year, they'll have the area to do from Waterford south to the school, then the area for the school during the summer break time in that Hickory intersection. So again, we're still getting done what we can with the temperatures, and they're also still working on the traffic signal. I think that might be another couple weeks before they can get that intersection completed. This was always intended to be a 2-year project, and it's been a little bit of a tough project. I know we always talk about the utilities, but we definitely had a lot of issues at the intersection of 170th and Meredith Drive that delayed us greatly on trying to get things completed. But again, we're working towards getting everything opened back up here.
John, could save it till tomorrow, but I'm going to give it to you now because we're talking about this. Can there be some temporary street lighting put up at the intersection?
Once the traffic signals go up, they'll have the lights on top.
Okay, because it is so dark.
Right. Correct. It's tough with these projects to get normal temp street lights, but we will have with the traffic signals.
Okay.
We'll have lighting there.
Comment here.
Okay.
I was, for too many years I've advocated for the Alice's Road improvements. And, it's been a difficult project. And of course, we had a huge cost overrun on this thing. Bids came in way higher than originally talked about. And it's a high-priced stretch of road. And it's one of the things I talked about. I don't take all the credit for it or blame either way, but it shows that a person needs to be a little careful at these meetings what you talk about and wish for, because it might happen. In this case, it has. Now, also, the safety hazard extends to both the north and south of the part that we've done. And of course, the next item here, page 87, page 8 is 107th Street, Alice's Road, Waterford Road, North Corporate Limit. Well, I'm not advocating from a, let me see if I can express it this way. From a safety standpoint, the improvements need to go north. But we're getting to a high-priced stretch of ground here. We're probably going to take a bridge. We're at our north corporate limit. It doesn't make sense to go further. I'm not even advocating for going north of Waterford Road, but it needs to happen. But this is, if we thought this last piece that we just got through with was high-priced, why, it'll look cheap compared to the next stretch. Bridget alluded to a little earlier here in our meeting, the south of our stretch here, into Clive and whoever. Apparently, they got no interest in doing anything. I absolutely don't understand that, but anyway, it is what it is. That's the end of my comments, sir. Thank you.
Right, and just a little bit about the 170th north of Waterford. It's still Dallas County on the west side of the road. So that's part of one of the things that's holding it up too. And also I'd say after this first half mile, it's actually it's probably closer to a quarter mile. Everything else is still in Dallas County as well. With this project will be a challenge. There'll be some real significant grading that'll have to occur through here. We've had a preliminary design done that, you know, it's almost to where either we're taking a large portion out of these fields or we're waiting until a development plan comes and we can work together on making all the grading work. That's why we have it in and out year right now.
And then the eventual north border, this isn't the final, is it Highway 44 at this point?
It's Meadow.
Meadow still, okay.
Yep. And then our last one in streets is a new sheet, just added in the first roughly 3/4 of a mile through here on 184th Street. Basically, we'd have a portion of this that's joint with Waukee, and then another portion. This is kind of where we're starting to have some development, but we hit another stretch here that's not currently in Urbandale. So again, but it's in and out year. A lot will change before we construct this road.
$33 pages. Questions on the last 33 pages? Okay.
Yep, I think
Street lighting, 1 page.
Yep, I think we're on the home stretch here. And really, street lighting, all the street lights, we just kind of showing where our street lights are, but all the street lights get paid for when we build the arterials. This would only be if we had a special section. We really don't have any special areas right now to add lighting that's not on a street already.
Okay.
And our last section is the traffic signals. Page 91 is a new sheet looking at installing adaptive traffic signals on the Douglas corridor from 100th Street or Northwest Urbandale Drive out to 121st Street. Basically, the way these traffic signals work, most of the signals we have now, we have adaptive with Clive on Hickman Road. But the way they work is you have your loops detect when the traffic's coming, and it just works with that controller. The adaptive ones, while they still detect the traffic, they also look at the other signals that are in the line and talk back and forth with each other as far as making adjustments that it can tell there are cars on the road, there's less cars. Wish I could tell you it works perfect, but it still makes improvements, and I think it would help through our area out here. I think traffic has improved with the opening of the Meredith interchange, but I still think we could make things better here. I also think we can get some ICAP funding, so we've proposed this in 2027.
So this is one that, you know, with Hickman potentially getting closed in what, 24? Or starting construction 24, 25-ish?
Correct.
Doing beautification in 25, is there a way to move this one up? Because I think the traffic flow here is going to be increasing.
Possibly. Just jumping ahead. The one that we've currently applied for, and I wanted to kind of see how the funding went, and you're not likely to get funding every year, so I tried kind of spacing them every couple of years to try to maximize what kind of funding we could get. Okay. But again, we can think about that. The other part is with the detour, the other thing is, once you are over capacity, the adaptive isn't going to help you anyway. Once you have more cars than you have lanes, it can't do any more than just max everything out.
Right.
Which is likely will be the case during all the detours. Next one is a traffic signal at the Deerfield community on Hickman. Just only a point on this, this is now an out year. We've had several conversations with Deerfield, and the signal is really not a priority with them anymore. So we've moved it back. Then we also have an out year potential for a traffic signal at 133rd Street.
Quick question.
Sure.
Is there any, what's the speed limit is, what, 45 or 55? Do you think they'll reduce that speed limit?
I kind of doubt it. The DOT does their speed studies, and as of right now, I'm not aware that they're looking to reduce speeds out there.
But it's designed for, I mean, it's Highway 6 still. So
Correct.
it's designed for a 55-mile-an-hour road, as much as sometimes it's about a 35-mile-an-hour road.
Right, but they keep messing with it because it goes 55, 45, 55, 45. So at some point, they're going to, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
And I've watched plenty of cars try to pull out of both of those places. It seems like,
Yeah, like I said, that's why we really talked with Deerfield, and they met with all their members, and they said it's not a project we want as a priority. So.
we just pull out anyway, I suppose.
Well, and so Sheridan Avenue does connect over to Deerfield.
Correct.
So if one light might solve both those, if somebody is
And I
going.
think it's likely going to be here. We're looking at another study, because there's always kind of been Woodlands or 133rd, and I think it's going to come back from the DOT to recommend that it look at more Woodlands than 133rd. It's a tough area where we really don't have any good connectivity, whereas to the south, they do have a lot more connectivity to use Woodlands. Instead, to have it here, you'd have to come through this private frontage road to meet up. So I think it'd be likely Deerfield and then a Woodlands would be the two locations.
But Clive has never wanted a stoplight anywhere along there, afraid traffic would head south to.
I think if Deerfield would have kind of been more supportive and looking to move forward, I think we could have maybe got over that hurdle. But without them having an interest, it's probably not the fight to take on right now.
I'll just make them all roundabouts.
And then page 94 is the Meredith Drive. Like I said, it's possible maybe the Douglas and Meredith could swap. I'd looked at in 2025 doing the adaptive on Meredith to help out through the business area here from 128th Street back to Northwest Urbandale Drive and then up to the interstate. Just to kind of help move things with the new Meredith interchange. I was looking at a 2025, and then our next one is the 100th Street adaptive. This would be from Plum Drive north to 54th. This is one we've got slated for 2024, and we have applied for the ICAP funding, so we're waiting to see if we get that funding or not. And then on page 96 is a traffic signal at 128th Street and Plum Drive, so just north here of Meredith Drive. Here's our north corporate limits. With development, this section of Plum will be constructed in the next year or so. Looking at some warehousing up here, some more warehousing over here. So once the warrants are met, we'd be able to do the traffic signal, and this would be funded 100% by the adjacent developments. And page 97 is a traffic signal at the intersection of 156th Street and Meredith Drive. That's currently under design and looking to bid that out in the January-February timeframe. Along with the next page here, the traffic signal at 156th and Waterford. So we'll bid both of those out as one project here shortly.
And will they be adaptive at the beginning?
They won't be adaptive. Typically, the adaptives gets more helpful when you have closer spaced. These, when they're a whole mile apart, you usually don't even coordinate them because you don't get the same speed of traffic with driving over that mile. They don't really platoon well. They all just spread out. And then on see, page 99 is a future traffic signal at 170th Street and Plum Drive. So again, we got development going on here on the east side. This was always intended as the help for crossings with the school. Again, that's right now is in and out year. And then our last one with traffic signals is just planning for the future in an out year for a traffic signal up at 170th Street and Waterford Road.
All righty. Questions on traffic signals? Bridget?
What? Do I have a question?
You always have questions on the section.
Well, I mean, I did actually, that was one of the places that I made a note, if you're gonna drag it out of me, but we're already going out to bid on it. And I doubted that we needed one at 156th and Douglas, and you proved me wrong. It's the best thing that ever happened. But simultaneous ones at 156th and Waterford and Meredith. It seems excessive, but I guess we can do them together, so, you know. And with the school opening in another year, might as well. So that's my question or my comment. And I've already got my one at 100 analysis in Meredith, so you might need to make sure I don't carve my name in it or anything.
Okay. Other questions on signals? The section we get to look at, but don't get to do anything on water. Any comments on it?
It's pretty.
It's just more that, you know, back to that it is a coordinated project between this and stormwater and other stuff we're doing, so.
Yep.
All righty. We've covered the sections and John made it through the big chunks. Jan cut hers in half this year to Scott. All righty. Other kind of questions, comments on this section so far before we get into, we won't need obviously Thursday's meeting, and I'll talk a little bit about the public hearing process here in a bit too, but comments of what we've gone through so far.
Mr. Chairman, one final comment here. I run my mouth here too much tonight. Anyway, I'm highly concerned, talking a little bit ago about the signal lights, one thing or another. I'm just terrifically concerned about the detours and all the traffic disruption we're going to have with the Hickman Road I-235 rebuild and the detours and how that's all really going to be done. And I guess I would urge our city council to insist designing these routes, the detours, that we start taking a hard look at vehicles per hour, and how this is really going to go down. I just, from my ignorant little standpoint here, I just can't imagine how this is all going to work. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Channel 8 and Des Moines Register had an article recently about it, and was there a 60-day time frame where Hickman will be totally closed underneath the?
Correct, yep. They haven't determined the number of days yet, but there will be a period, where Hickman's completely closed. They can't do the bridge work above with traffic coming underneath.
So, yes. I wasn't around when the Pope was here, but I'm guessing it's going to be as bad.
Only for over 60 days.
But a 60-day, not a short time frame. Yes, so, yeah. Yeah.
John, I completely agree with you. I can't even process it. And my least favorite kind of engineer, no offense, is traffic engineers because they just know everything. But I have to trust them that they know what they're going to, the best way to do this. And I know as long as I'm on the city council, this is a top thing that I'm going to be paying attention to because I don't understand it. I mean, I understand it as much as I'm able to, but like I can't process what it's going to look like when it's under construction. And it scares me because my kids travel this way and everyone I know goes this way to something. And so I could give you my word and probably Adam's and that this is going to be something that we really pay attention to. But again, I have to trust that our traffic engineers know what they're doing on this, because it's going to be scary, it's going to be ugly, and we'll figure it out and just hold hands and close our eyes together, I guess.
Not while driving.
Yeah, yes, now we're driving.
Yep. Okay, so the December 1st meeting is not needed. So we'll be back here December 20th for the public hearing. So if my memory serves me right, kind of the agenda that night is for the public to comment on any sections they want to comment on. And then after that, we close the public hearing, and then the committee brings forward any recommendations, comments they have. We'll go section by section with the public hearing part. When it comes to the committee standpoint, depending on how many there are, if you could be so kind to email ahead of time if you know there's certain ones you pull out, and we'll see if we need to go section by section or kind of look at the whole document at that point. We know we have a police station one to amend potentially in here, so we know we have at least one page to deal with that way. The rest is all going to be kind of committee and public hearing driven of if there's other changes. So if 7 years of doing this, I think that's the process of the public hearing, and I'm looking at Addison for the agenda. Okay. And then once that is done, then it would be finalizing the document to send on to City Council, which will also have an additional public hearing on it before they finalize it. So the public has 2 chances at this to talk about it. And then that, once it's finalized, direct staff to kind of go and do and plan accordingly of what's in here. So the things that are in here, if you notice, once it's in here, they seem to stay in here a lot too. But also, we've got projects that 3 years ago weren't in here because of committee recommendations to bring things forward and prioritize dollars. So the process is a needed process, and it's unique to the Metro, and I love that we do it. So, any other comments before adjournment?
I like your format.
Yeah, and I just really appreciated all the city prep, and I know there's so much that goes into this, and just the visuals to help when they did work, which is why when I saw technology on here, I thought, absolutely, we got to fund technology. But it's just wonderful to have everything ahead of time, be able to review it, and so just thank you to everybody on staff for their work.
Yes, they've put a lot of work into it, especially this year. With 170th Street soaking up a large chunk of money, there's a lot of movement that happened. So,
A little change in the interest rate helps too.
yeah. So, all right. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. John, and we'll let Pat be in the minutes there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you.